Hi there, my name is Joy Morin and I am a piano teacher and a blogger at colorinmypiano.com. I thought it'd be kind of fun today to create a little video just to chat a little bit about some thoughts going on in my head after having shared a quote on my blog earlier this week. So that quote is, "Success is the best motivation." Success is the best motivation. So this is a quote that I think is very useful for teachers of any discipline, actually. It's one that I've found very useful in my teaching in recent years, and I hope maybe you'll hear some things that might help you with your teaching today too. So the way that I see this quote working is that if we can bring the student to experience success, they will feel some motivation as a result, and that motivation can help push them into the next level, kind of, or the next challenge, or the next difficulty, or whatever it might be. And as teachers, we're always wondering about this question: how do I motivate my students, or how do I help them motivate themselves, or whatever. And it can be a tricky thing, but if we can find ways to help students kind of get on this practice cycle, I'm a big believer in, if you're motivated, you're going to practice, but if you practice, you're going to be motivated. So if you can just find a way to get onto that cycle, then you'll be good. So one possible way, kind of related to those things, is making sure that the students are set up for success. So here's an example. So let's say we have a student who has recently been experiencing some less than successes, okay? And it doesn't really matter what the reasons might be for causing this situation to be in the present here. It could be that perhaps I was a bit ambitious with the book that I gave the student, or the pieces that we're working on, or something. It might be that the student came from another teacher, so there was a different teaching situation before. It might be that life is just getting in the way, and so, which happens to all of us. Things happen, and maybe the student isn't able to practice as much as they were before, or different things could be coming up. But no matter the reason, we're in the situation now, and we need to decide where to go from here. Okay, so let's say the student is experiencing these difficulties with a book that I've given them. I'm observing this difficulty, and I'm thinking to myself, I know from experience that the student can keep going in this manner for only so long before it's going to really start to impact the way they feel about piano, or lessons, or practicing, or whatever it might be. And so as a teacher, I'm kind of looking out for this. If I see it starting to kind of happen, then kind of a red flag goes off in my head, and I'm watching this situation. And then if I decide we need to make a change, then we do. So for example, I'm not afraid of just kind of tossing aside a book, even if we haven't finished the whole thing. That's okay. So what I will do in certain situations, if I just feel that this choice isn't the right thing for the student anymore, I will have a conversation with the student and just say, hey, I've been thinking about this book, and I would really like for you to have some pieces that you can master in just 2 or 3 weeks. And these are just taking us longer to learn and to get through. So I was thinking, let's take a break from this book, and I have this other book in mind, and so I have something kind of prepared that I would prefer to work them into. So that's how I kind of present it to the student. So I've shared with them what I want to do and the reason why, and students are very receptive to this. To me, it's just the right thing to do in the situation, and especially with our responsibility as teachers. Students don't really necessarily know, how things are supposed to go and how things are supposed to feel, or if, is it their fault, or, they might not even have much self-awareness around the situation to realize that maybe something needs to change. So we as teachers need to be guiding this and overseeing things. So there's one example. Let's go to example number 2. So now we're thinking of an in-lesson situation where we are practicing a particular passage in a piece of music. Normally what we do is break it down for the student, right? We're practicing together, so we're kind of teaching the student how they can break down the passage in their practice at home. And so we're showing them what we want them to replicate at home. So this process might be, let's look at this hands alone. So we try the passage, just one hand or the other hand, and then maybe we're putting it together, or maybe we're slowing down the tempo, or maybe we're simplifying the left hand into blocked chords, or whatever it might be. We break down the passage into kind of more digestible parts and, kind of build things up from there. So when we do this process, which is a great teaching process to use, we want to be mindful of the given tasks that we are presenting the student with. So if I ask the student to play this passage a certain way, and they're not getting it, they're having trouble, they keep trying and they're having difficulty, then again there's that red flag in my head. And I bet you're all thinking, your instinct as a teacher is, okay, if that isn't working, let's break it down further, right? We take a step back, and that's exactly the right thing to do in that situation. You back up a step and try that, and then you work your way back up to where you were and keep trying to go on from there. So this is that idea applied. Success is the best motivation. So if we can bring the student to experience some success with it broken down, appropriately enough for them, then we can build from there. So this idea is one that comes from probably my favorite book on teaching. And that book is Intelligent Music Teaching by Robert Duke. I highly recommend the book. I have a review written on my blog if you're interested to check that out. But in the book, Robert Duke shares about this idea. It's where he's talking about sequencing, which is this idea of ordering tasks, learning tasks, in a kind of a progressive order of difficulty. So in this exact situation, like I just described, where we're asking the student to do something for us, Robert Duke says, if the student is unsuccessful in doing the task accurately, correctly, whatever, beautifully, masterfully, and if they're unsuccessful after 2 or 3 tries, that means the task is too difficult. So that's the rule of thumb that Robert Duke shares in his book, and I think it's a good one. It's a great one to keep in mind. So if the student can't get it right after 2 or 3 tries, it means we need to step back a little bit and then work back up to that point. Okay, example number 3. So let's say I have an example of a student where I'm at the previous year's recital, when I think back of the student preparing their piece to have it mastered and sounding beautiful in time for the deadline, the recital. And if I recall in a past year that a student perhaps, played the piece solidly, gave a good performance, but, if I just knew that it could have been even more stellar and I want the student to be experiencing that, then what I will do the next year is to think carefully about the piece that I'm kind of guiding them to choose for the recital, and try to make sure that they choose something that will allow them to just give a stellar performance and knock it out of the park. So that means making sure that the piece isn't too challenging for them for that year. I just think it's so important that, students do experience great success in those performance situations, and so I try to do, everything I can to make that happen. So, if the previous year was less than stellar, I try to make it happen the next year, that they can just easily go into the performance situation feeling secure and confident with their piece and really just experiencing success. So there's a few examples of ways that this quote could be applied to teaching. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. I would love to hear if you have other examples of situations where you've done something similar to help the student experience success and to help them be motivated by that. So thanks for watching this video. If you'd like me to consider doing more videos like this, let me know, and we'll see you next time.